They're maturing. I don't know if you've seen ChatGPT Enterprise.
Apple doesn't do technology, they do products.
The big thing that I think has been missed is their supercomputer dojo. Look, let's kick off 3 things that matter in AI and 3 things that don't. Last week we ended talking about Apple and what Apple doing in the whole AI space.
Apple. They've been quiet and they had an event in June. It's their worldwide developer conference. They literally launch every conceivable product in this. It's a major event. This one guy, he literally went through the transcript to search if they're saying AI at all. They haven't said it once in the whole conference. They said machine learning a few times. And how come? In May, a month before, Google had their Google I.O. There's a clip online when they basically cut all the times that the Google guy said AI on stage.
As an AI first company, AI, generative AI, AI.
It actually also reminds me of this guy, Robert Scoble. He's this OG Valley blogger. A few months ago, I checked his Twitter. His handle was AI. So we've got May, Google goes all in AI. Before that, Microsoft announced an investment round in ChatGPT. Sam Altman goes to Congress they literally talking about existential risk. Like, will AI destroy the world and kill all of us? And then Apple comes along and they launch the vision. Apple's new VR product, which is, by the way, they changed it to special computing. So what's going on? I think there's a deeper story here. Apple doesn't do technology, they do products. It's a way of thinking. You know, when Apple launches VR, they say, no, the product here is spatial computing product.
They're playing a different game. Everyone's talking about AI. It's there, but there's a conscious decision to be opposite of everyone else as well.
I think if you look at what Apple have been doing over the years, there was the time when every big tech company launched their cloud offering. Over the years, baked cloud into everything they do, right? There's iCloud. And that made a lot of companies redundant and a lot of shifts the technology in a certain direction, the way they do it.
They don't talk about the technology. They're talking about what that means to an end user of their products, the benefits of those. And I think this is an interesting point. AI is not the product. AI is a feature within the product. And I think they're a really good example where we've been discussing this for a little bit. You don't see them mention it. It is a significant part of their strategy. I think it's a really interesting take that they're playing the opposite of Google, who's saying a lot about it, and everyone else that's out there in the market.
It goes deeper. Did you notice? They don't do video calls. They do FaceTime. They don't even do haptic. They do touch computing. Even at the level of the computer structure, like the thing called motherboard, it's called logic board at Apple. So they don't do high definition displays like the rest of us. They do retina display. So it's the same thing. So Apple will come with some branding and will bake it in. It will make sense in the context of their ecosystem. They wouldn't throw bones to the AI crowd. If you look at what they actually launched, they didn't say AI every 10 seconds like Thunder Pichai.
AI.
They launched a bunch of things that you can start seeing how they're baking these capabilities into their products and how they evolve their platforms. We've seen better autocorrect. What is a better autocorrect? It's an LLM. And they're talking a lot about, they want to be the privacy company, right? You talked a lot about that.
I think the thing that hasn't really been talked about a lot out there is their chips. Whether we look at the sort of M1, M2, there's a lot in them. There's a lot of unused capacity that we haven't yet seen being utilized. I've got a new iPad, the latest chip in that, and that was a conscious decision on my part to buy that. Same thing, we're recording this on a MacBook, which has an M1, M2. For me, that was a conscious decision because I could see the difference in processing video, being able to press on a photo and it extracts the people out of the photo. These are all examples of using AI. It's having that compute on the edge that I think can unleash that as they have features. And I think that's a really interesting thing for them.
They're selling devices. If you think cloud-centric computing architecture means that all I need is a thin client, a browser, and a high bandwidth, a network, a wire. I don't need a device. Google clearly wants you to do cloud computing, the best browser in the world, but Apple doesn't, right? Apple wants you to buy an expensive, great hardware that sits next to you. And they will argue that the chip is very important, that the processing of the matrices that runs the machine learning should run on your device because of data privacy. And it's actually a good argument. I think that's an interesting point. We have a tension between where is the computer? Is the computer close to me, or is the computer, monstrous computing in the cloud? Apple wants you to have basically to buy an expensive $3,000 computer every few years. You bet that the technology choices that they will make would steer in that direction. They launched a bunch of other interesting products here in this last WWDC. Apparently, there's a new thing called Apple Journal. It seems to me like some sort of personal journal to take notes, but it offers you prompts. It's basically ChatGPT. It's basically unbundling the ChatGPT experience into their product. So imagine ChatGPT is this kind of Oracle AI that you go there and you help me write a little script. Here's a bit of code, fix it for me. I need a recipe. I'm traveling to France, give me ideas. And Apple has that, by the way. It's called Siri. It's not yet at the level of the AI that they will, and you bet it's coming. But they're going to start unbundling all those capabilities into all their products. And that's I think that's the game.
Why is it that Siri and even Alexa to a certain extent are not great experiences still? There's a big gap between what we're seeing happening with the LLM's capabilities than what we're seeing with some of these assistants. What's missing to go to that next level?
What's missing is Apple switching on Siri LLM. And once they do that, Siri will be as smart. But think of Siri as a way to interface into your device. So Siri, how do I get somewhere? Siri, read me my emails, respond to Yash. Basically, natural language processing, a way to access my Apple devices in the world, right? Think of ChatGPT as an Oracle LLM, an Oracle AI that knows everything and summarize me something and so forth. Actually, it's a bad product. I think it's weird that like there's a single chat that I can ask a lot of things. Like it's okay. I like it. I enjoy it. It's power user move. It's for power users. But you can see how you don't use the same interface. Hey Siri, I've got debug my code versus Siri, book me a flight. You know what I mean? It's like doesn't make sense to be the same product. So that's what they will do. They will probably unbundle the AI into all their products and then give you Siri as your personal assistant.
There's a lot of interesting things with Tesla, not just on the car side of things, for them to be able to get to that full self-driving. But the big thing that I think has been missed and is just starting to come out now as a discussion is their supercomputer Dojo. I mean, last week we talked about NVIDIA and how NVIDIA's gone bananas and their valuations are at that sort of $1 trillion mark. And competitors. For me, what Tesla's doing, they have this massive compute that they're going to release with this thing called Dojo. It's going to, help them to do all the things that they need to do at that next level of training, to be able to understand traffic lights, road signs, all of those things to be able to get to that full self-driving. I have some bets with some people about whether that will or won't happen. I sort of believe it will. But, what we're talking about is the compute we have with NVIDIA. There's a really interesting graph that shows that. They're saying they're going to start production of Dojo in July 2023. By January 2024, it'll be a really significant amount of compute. So it's going to release a whole ranch of compute, which is equivalent to those A100 chips that NVIDIA has. I feel this supply and demand is going to change.
What are they selling? What are they selling and to who?
I reckon they're going to be like the AWS part of Amazon. AWS is there to serve Amazon as a starting point. That's where Amazon earns their money from, really. If you look at how profitable that as a business for them, I see Tesla being able to offer something similar through Dojo. But, we don't have all the details of that yet, but you can see they're going to be a player in this space, I feel.
I don't know. Tesla have clearly a lot of compute because they need to train this supercomputer that can drive, and they've been pretending that it's easy. So I did a PhD in AI.
I would never have known that,
Not to brag or anything, but when I seen the 2015-16, all those claims that, self-driving is around the corner. I was calling BS on that back then. And it's for 8 years. It's been coming next year. I'm not saying it's not coming, but it's definitely a case that the last 2% is the hardest thing to get. You could argue that it's coming, but it was very clear to me at least, that it's very hard. So Tesla is building this supercomputer somewhere in the desert, if I'm not mistaken, that basically needs to learn from all this fleet of cars that it's driving and recording backward how to self-drive. Okay, great. They do absolutely need enormous amount of compute for that. Good for them. But to start pretending that they're going to, one of the business models is to actually sell redundant compute to other companies. I mean, that's a completely different business model. And it's like you start competing with Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure. Is Tesla going to do that? I think if and anything they want to ever do that, they will have to spin another company to do that.
I wouldn't put it past them. They need to have that compute if they've got spare capacity, or they can continue to increase that. The thing is, they're producing this. If you look at what they're doing, they own the space. You look at their Exapod, and it's just a new way of doing things. But I think the key thing here is NVIDIA won't be playing on their own.
NVIDIA sells the hardware. And then there's a huge bottleneck of demand. Like there's too much demand, not enough supply of compute. What do? Well, someone goes and buys all the hardware, right? And then sells you services. So you don't have to buy hardware. You just buy 2 hours this week, 20 hours next week. We run it for a month. So you kind of on-demand it. And that's how they scale. It's a little bit like selling bandwidth back in the day, right? Okay, I get that. But is that what Tesla is doing? I mean, that's not Tesla. Now, what they did also report is that they're going to start doing their own hardware. I think NVIDIA is I'm going to bet on NVIDIA to win the hardware, because you vertically integrated kind of fab business like NVIDIA is going to blow out of the water like someone like Tesla, in my personal opinion, in a dedicated chip. We'll see. I mean, Apple is reportedly doing their own chips, and they have that done for many 20 years. years. And now finally in 2023, they launched, 2021 or whatever it was, they launched M1, M2, and so forth. And now they first with IBM, then with Intel, now they're on by themselves. That's Apple, and they're like a hardware software company. Tesla is a car company. They have software, and it's a big deal part of it. But like, let's face it, the big deal software part of it is like the device on the car, the board, and the cloud computing that learns how to self-drive. It's a slightly different business.
I'd argue whether they're a car company exactly. I would probably say they are a software company and they are an energy company as well. I think there's a combination. That's what makes it so unique. But I agree with you. This is down the line. But I do think there's some interesting things they're doing for themselves that I think could be unleashed. It's a pretty significant step up from what we have right now. So let's see. There's time, and then there's Tesla time as well. There's always things that are promised and they take a lot longer than when they first start seeing it. So I've seen that quite often. So what about OpenAI? Have you seen the latest numbers that it looks like what they're going to turn over this year? They're generating more than 80 million a month, $1 billion this year.
I think it's an amazing business. I think it's the winner. The winner of the AI hype is by far OpenAI.
I think without a doubt, we wouldn't be where we are without OpenAI pushing things out and pushing the dial a bit. It's pushing everyone else along now to get out there and bring their own models. I think there's a lot of competition. It's great that they have led the way. They're maturing. And I don't know if you've seen their offering around ChatGPT Enterprise. You know, they've been trialing some technology now with companies like Zapier and Canva to really have an offering which is a bit more secure and a bit more corporate focus. What do you think about what they're doing there and some of the features? Are you aware of what they're doing?
There's a few use cases of AI. When it came first, it caught many people by surprise, and people were like scratching their head. What exactly is the application of AI? And one of the first things that emerged was intelligent assistants. Yep. Another one is co-pilots. Every product will have some sort of co-pilot. And the last one was kind of a general purpose oracle for enterprise. If you think about a big company, how much friction is generated by just individual people working in the company trying to figure out policies, ways of doing things, best practices, names of things, just the access of the people, employees of a company into the company knowledge base and how it's actually facilitated. Now, if you can actually get a large language model to train on all the documents produced by this company and a foundational model that's pretty intelligent, ChatGPT level 4 already, then you can start seeing a phenomenally productive tool for enterprise that will pay a premium on that. And that was kind of obvious it's going to happen. And there's like a lot of companies that are selling basic AI for the enterprise, and we're trying to. It was a kind of matter of when, not if, in my opinion. When is OpenAI going to open up the capabilities in the enterprise grade? And there's a lot of startups that try to say, for example, security and privacy, solving for those problems with, staff of employees accessing GPT-like services. Now, ChatGPT is coming with their own offering. It will be very interesting to see what's going to happen.
I think this has some big implications for some of the startups that we've been seeing in terms of it'll be harder to compete in this space when they're offering that. It puts OpenAI in that enterprise sales space now as well, and so they'll be getting bigger contracts and people will pay a premium. Let's outline a couple of the features that we're seeing in that. So it is around that enterprise grade security, SOC 2 compliant, encryption and so forth. I think they're really trying to highlight those security and privacy features that they're putting in there. A single sign-on, some of those things for large scale deployments as well. They're talking about analytics and dashboards and so forth. I guess making it the product more corporate in terms of some of the metrics and insights that people really need. And then equally removing all the throttling, so unlimited access to GPT-4, so no usage caps and so forth, and higher performance.
Did they say anything about tokens?
Yeah, I think it's like 32K token context windows.
That's enough to say, generate me another sales proposals just like this for this customer. Job done.
There's some more usage of sort of getting their APIs as well. People will be able to embed this in their products a lot more, both internally and externally. So I think it's going to be interesting. And, we're seeing Google, Amazon playing in that space. Like I say, people are having more choice, and that's what's great. We're going to see a proliferation of different solutions using this. The difficult thing here is who is going to win out of this, and whether it be some of the startups. Is it going to be leveraging this? What is the moat for any of the companies that we're looking at is going to be difficult when they're just basing it on those things. So it's moving quickly. Each month we're seeing these different moves forward, and we'll have to see how this plays out.
You've got this thesis out there that AI empowers the incumbents, and then there's the counter, AI will disrupt the incumbents. Which one is it? The answer is probably both. There's areas where AI will absolutely empower the incumbents. If you already have the world word processor, either Google Docs or Office, and like it has I don't know, together 90% of the market. A new startup that offers you a word processing powered by AI is going to be very difficult to win if those guys come and bake AI into their offering. So at that level, that's very difficult to see how adding AI as a feature to existing products definitely empowers the incumbent. There's the whole problem of AI also changed the nature of work and the nature of the product that you need. And that's where the opportunity, in my opinion, for complete new products that are based on a new workflow and a new things that we didn't ever do. Sure, Canva will add AI and it will auto-generate something, but maybe there's areas and rooms where AI is not make the need redundant.
100%. We had a reverse pitch actually with the AWS Accelerator that we saw. We talked to a few of the companies that were going to pitch, and we pitched, why what we're doing at Empress in terms of investing in AI is a good thing. But one of the things that I talked about that point is really around looking for blue oceans. And, right now we're at this stage of low-hanging fruit, people automating things that we've been doing all along. But I truly believe that the big opportunities are going to be those blue oceans, creating new product, new business processes almost. And that's where I feel like the big opportunity is going to be. And that's where we will have these new startups that are going to dominate as opposed to the existing, players. OpenAI is an existing player almost, but they are the startup as well in here. So we're seeing, obviously, they're well embedded in where we're at right now. But I do feel strongly that the best is yet to come. The lay of the land is just being worked out. And OpenAI doing this on the enterprise side is just another step towards where we're going to end up. And people are going to have to be more creative than finding the gaps in what they're doing, because OpenAI are trying to build out their whole product set. And this will be interesting to see how that plays out. They're talking about versions as well, specifically for healthcare and education as well, that will be available. So different flavors of what they have there.
Okay, so we did 3 things that matter. Let's move to the second part of the show. So LinkedIn came up with Future of Work report on AI at work. What's your take, Yash?
It's interesting. I think this kind of fits into one of the 3 things that don't matter. To me, look, there's nothing unsurprising in there. ChatGPT is being mentioned a lot more, 20 times X since November last year.
Did you see page 27?
Is it saying that those are the skills that we need? Is that?
It's basically an orgy of buzzwords here. Is this a thing that matters, that LinkedIn made a report?
86% of people are saying they're looking to AI to assist them finding the right information and summarizing. So, it's a great sort of polished report, but I do feel like, is it really telling us anything we don't know that's going on? So
I think it's telling us that LinkedIn content marketing team is doing a great job.
Did you see the drones that are now beating humans? You have these high-speed drones that are beating world champion races. And so for the first time, we've had AI-controlled drones that are beating the humans, and they sort of go through these challenges where they have to go through these different gates and so forth. And it's pretty impressive. If you see this go around and you realize it's not been piloted by a human, it's highly impressive. We've sort of seen AI in terms of games that are StarCraft or Go, and, some of these things that were the realms of only humans and also really smart humans being able to play those and beat those Go masters. And that was when we were like saying, wow, this is taking a step up. But we've not really seen this in physical games. I've seen some sort of soccer playing robots and things like that. But this is pretty significant. I think, that there are some really interesting things that could be done with that, through the use of drones. And so I think we're going to see some commercial implications of this. We have a portfolio company, Airseed. They do some amazing work. Shout out to Andy and the team. But they have some really interesting algorithms and computer vision models that they use as to where they plant those trees. But I think they'll be able to get to places they would never otherwise be able to do this at scale. One of their limitations is right now is being the number of pilots that are able to fly those in certain areas. And if there are certain scenarios where they can use this technology, I think it'd be really interesting.
AI21 raised $155 million. Have you heard of them?
What do AI21 do for those that don't know?
So it's basically, think of ChatGPT AI. It's an Israeli-based large language model leader. It's basically sells API access to other people to develop off top of it. It's not trying to compete with OpenAI as you go to them to talk to them, but it's just trying to compete as like, we've got an API that's friendly to developers. So it's a developer-facing competition. Again, this is the idea of unbundling. So OpenAI is now doing like a bunch of things to a bunch of customers, and they're bundling them like in a way, like, and they become this AI service provider, if you want. And now you can start to see competition emerging in each niche, in each subsection of the market. Well, that's a, you bet bunch of nerds from my home country who's going to basically build the best enterprise grade technology for developers like me that want to integrate with an API, to build better products. They have more options, not just GPT-4. It's a unicorn. It's an amazing success.
So I think that highlights as well what's going on, which is to move into the enterprise. and the maturing of what we're having with a lot of these companies. And look, this is different flavor. I know they're available to be used with Amazon in AWS as well as I think Google. So I think, and they're both participated in this round of funding. So the good news is for enterprises, there's more and more options. We're starting to see this creep into that space. And I think this is where we're going to go from people standing back a bit to really embracing it even more and feel a bit more safe that there are enterprise-wide solutions. I'm not saying we're there yet, and I think there's a lot of implications from legislation. I'm finding it really interesting just to see the progression. The law side of things is something I think we should also discuss at some point to go, where are we at in Australia, but where are we at globally? I know Spain have just recently announced their sort of first AI regulation organization. I think they're one of the first countries to be really doing this. I think all this is great, but the law hasn't caught up yet either. And I think that's going to be really interesting when that does, to see what implication it has for all the companies.
Yes, good show today. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, excellent.
Oh, by the way, have you heard of Google launching Duet?
Yeah, tell me more.
It's a lot to talk about. We'll talk about it next week.
All right, next week we're going to go to Duet and more. Great talking. We'll catch up next week.